My husband, 32M, and I, 28F, have been married for 2 years and together for 5. Until now, I would have said that we had the perfect relationship, but right now it seems like that's over and I'm not sure who the AH is, if anyone. I grew up in a really bad abusive and neglectful situation. I've been to therapy and done the work, but there are still some issues that are just going to be permanent, I think. The two relevant here are that I need to have a calm, safe living space that is mine to function, and I do not do well around children. I don't hate children, but I was forced into raising 7 siblings and step-siblings when I was still a kid myself, and I will never be responsible for another kid for as long as I live. I've had my tubes removed to make absolutely sure there will never be an oops. My husband has known this since the beginning and also does not want children. His family situation is also not great, but he's still involved with them mostly for his mom and nephew's sake. About a month ago, Sil was murdered by her ex, who unalived himself as well. The boys were visiting Mill, so thankfully they weren't in the house when it happened, otherwise I think they would be gone, too. It's horrific. The boys and my husband are devastated. Sil was not my favorite person in the world. She had a lot of the same traits my abusers had, but nobody deserves that, and I'm trying to be supportive of their grief. The problem is that there's nowhere for the boys to go. They were staying with Mill, but her health is so poor that DHR decided that she's not stable enough to have custody. Their father's family doesn't have anything to do with them, which is a long story by itself. My husband has a younger brother, but he has substance use issues and isn't in a good place to take on 2 kids. That leaves my husband and me as the only real family placement option. My husband isn't thrilled about bringing kids into the situation, but he feels like he has to keep them out of foster care, which I understand. Here's the problem. I absolutely do not want these kids living under the same roof as me. It's a PTSD trigger, but also they're understandably for their situation not the best behaved kids to start with. Add some hella trauma onto that and those kids are going to need a lot of help. My husband swears that he will do everything for them, but I think he's being unrealistic. We got into a really nasty argument about it and he said that this is a make or break moment for the marriage because he's not backing down and he'll take the kids and divorce me if he has to. Our house was mine before we got married. I inherited it from my grandmother. I insisted on a prenup to protect it when we got married. My husband has a health issue that makes full-time work difficult and he struggled at the best of times before we got married. If we split up, his chances of finding an affordable place to live nearby in the current market are not good. He's not quite disabled enough to receive disability. Frankly, if I and the house weren't part of the bargain, I'm not sure that DHR would place the kids with him. Where I might be the awe is that after he threw the D word at me I told him that in that case he would need to move out of my house because he would no longer be welcome, go back to working full-time because I wouldn't be bankrolling an ex, and good luck taking care of 2 traumatized kids with his health, much lower income, and without a stable housing. I think it hadn't occurred to him just how much he would lose access to, because we've always just shared without thinking about it. He's not speaking to me right now and Mill called and read me the riot act for financial abuse and abandoning family. I feel for the nephews, I really do, but I am not the person those kids need right now and I feel like I was really clear from the very beginning that I would never be okay taking care of kids or living with them. I think we're cooked either way at this point, but aita? Some of OOP comments. First, NTA. The whole thing sucks and is very sad. You knew your limitations and made them clear to others. You can't be expected to move out of your own house. Could your husband move in with Mill? Would her insurance cover some home care, or compensate your husband for her care? Oop. I'm looking into that actually because even if we split up I don't want him to suffer. The problem is that a lot of welfare and social services have been cut and he's one of the people that falls into the cracks of not being eligible for a lot of stuff that could help but not physically able to handle a full-time job that would give him decent benefits. I have a social worker friend that I asked to look into what additional benefits they might be able to get and whether it would hurt Mil's benefits if my husband were living with her. It's terrible that people have to make these kinds of choices. Husband's disability. He has an autoimmune condition that can get pretty bad when it flares up and he has chronic pain from it. He works contracts part-time from home so that he can pace himself and rest because when it kicks up he genuinely can't do anything even with meds. It's controlled as well as it can be. His mom has the same thing, just way more advanced. He does his best and things work well with just the two of us, and he was getting by before we moved in together, but I really don't think he could handle the kids and take care of himself. Second, if they won't give his mom custody because she has the same health condition, what makes him so certain they are going to give him custody? Oop. Denial. The only reason we're considered a good option is because I have a stable home, income, and am able-bodied. This is a rural area with a long run of generational poverty, and both of our families are prime examples of what happens to people in that environment. There is no way that my husband would be able to care for those kids during one of his flare-ups. They're only going to get worse and more frequent over time, barring new treatments, and Mill should really be in assisted living. The way I see this going is we split up and he moves into his mom's trailer. They still don't pass muster with DHR. The kids go into foster care anyway, and everyone's life is worse for nothing. If they were in foster care and Mill and my husband had visitation, we could keep an eye on them to make sure they're not being abused while we try to figure out a better long-term solution. Instead, it looks like we're just going to trash everything. Oop about foster care, several downvoted comments, included because her answer was extensive. There are no avenues for the kids that won't inflict more trauma. Foster care isn't the worst that can happen. I begged to be taken away when I was their age. The kids have 2 uncles and a grandmother who can't provide actual care for them. What happens when my husband has a severe flare-up and he's bedridden for days? What happens when his meds stop working and he's in pain and unable to function until they figure out something else? Being exposed to that will also traumatize kids. He or Mill could develop fatal complications at any time, and then who's stuck with the kids? As for me, I did a ton of therapy and meds, and this is as good as it gets. Some things cannot be unbroken no matter how much you want them to be. People need to understand that in the real world, trauma is sometimes a permanent injury and recovery is learning to live with it instead of damaging yourself further. My husband knew since our second date that there were never any conditions in which I would ever agree to have a child in my home or under my care. No exceptions, full stop. He made the decision to marry me knowing that was an immovable boundary. If he thought there was a chance he would ever need to take in his nephews, I feel like he was the one who needed to walk away. I don't mind taking care of him when he needs it, and I've been more of a rock for him than anyone else in his life. I can't stop him if he wants to jump off the rock and go drown, but the rock isn't going to follow him. Kid's paternal family. It was the boy's father that did the murder, so he's out of the picture. The short version is that he was cheating on his wife with Sil and it blew up on them eventually. Wife made him choose and he chose her. From what Sil said, his family refuses to believe they're his and told Sil to kick rocks when she approached them. Third, what did she approach them for? Oop. She said she just wanted them to know their grandparents and family, but honestly who knows what else Sil might have asked for. I took most of what she said with a chunk of rock salt. Survivor benefits. Unfortunately, Sil never had an above-the-table job for very long, and I don't think the boy's father was ever legally established as their parent. He was married to someone else the whole time and was giving Sil money without a court agreement or paper trail. He had a wife and other kids, so it's going to take some time for legal stuff to be figured out. That situation is a whole saga by itself. Editor's note. Oop has some pretty graphic descriptions of what to her in her childhood and in foster care. I'm not including them in the post, but if you want to read the thread you can do so here. You'll have to expand the comments because she's replying to downvoted ones. Edit 1. Sometime in the next 24 hours. Edit. There are a lot of responses and I'm trying to get to them all. I'm taking a PTO day to deal with some of this stuff and get myself back together. As a lot of you have said, there's no way back from this, and I think I'm going to go ahead and accept that now instead of dragging it out. The trust is gone. I made an appointment with a lawyer this morning, and from what I've read, an uncontested divorce could go pretty quickly and smoothly if we don't squabble over money. I don't have any interest in screwing him over, but I also won't be screwed over. I hate it. I wish this wasn't happening, but I've worked way too hard for a stable life to flush it down the toilet. I'm going to freeze my credit and lock down the accounts today in case he or Mill get ideas, and have the talk tonight. I'm also about to call the case manager contact at DHR and explain the situation so it's on record and they can start making a plan that doesn't include me as a part of the equation. I'm debating how much help I'm going to continue providing. I will continue to help my husband while he lives here, But I was also doing a lot to help out Mill with things her health makes difficult and to allow her to put her energy towards the kids right now, and I think that's going to stop since it's not appreciated and the relationship is over. As far as the whole looking after family thing, I don't believe in family. Family has done more harm to me than anything else in this world and provided not a single benefit, so I don't put any value on blood or relations. I do what I can when I can for others, but I know in the same circumstance, none of these people would help me, either because they can't or they just wouldn't care that much. So just spare me the whole, they're your family, stuff, please. That word doesn't hit the same way for me that it does for you. I will update once I've talked to my husband and figured out a path forward. Thanks for the input even if some of you think I'm a monster. Edit 2. November 15, 2025, 2 days later. Well, that was a rough night. Now he doesn't want to divorce and wants to figure something out. Of course. The stress of the whole situation is pushing him into a flare, so I'm giving him some grace, but I told him that we won't go back to exactly the way things were before the D-word now no matter what happens. I don't trust him. He needs to sit down with the social worker, look at the facts, and make a call on his own. I have the lawyer's recommendations for an amicable divorce filing we can discuss if he decides on that route. His mom said some unforgivable things in her little tirade, so the things I was doing to help her stop. Whatever happens, I will make sure he has health insurance until he can make other arrangements. I would be willing to discuss all of this in counseling with him while we try to sort it out, but for now, one of us is moving into the spare room or he can go stay with his mom. He's upset, but agreed. It's probably going to take some time to get a resolution, but I will try to post again down the road once the situation settles out. Side post. November 17, 2025. 2 days later, 4 from Og Post. Title: Setting up a rental agreement with an ex-partner, is this a good idea? Legal advice. Location: Alabama. I'm doing some preemptive option shopping to resolve a difficult situation. My spouse and I are headed for a divorce. He plans to take in his 2 nephews who have been recently orphaned. In order to do that, he has to have an acceptable living situation. He is disabled, but doesn't qualify for disability, and doesn't work full-time, so rent would be tricky. While there are resources to help with some stuff, housing is going to be the main issue out of the gate. The house is mine from before the marriage and protected by a prenup. According to the SW case manager, public housing is waitlisted right now. Other family are unable to help. I have an idea that might be feasible if not the most convenient. My job always has openings for 6-month on-base postings. If I took one of those, I would be out of the house during that time. My soon-to-be ex could stay in the house with the kids while I'm gone, but I want to ensure that they would be out before I returned. I assume there would need to be a formal renter agreement. I don't actually want to charge him any rent or as low as it's possible to stipulate the terms and spell out what happens if there are damages. I am concerned about having to evict them if they haven't found anywhere else by the time I return from that posting. Is this a viable plan, and what should I be looking at to protect my interests? I'm not as knowledgeable about tenant law, and I don't want generosity to be taken advantage of. Mini update in comments. November 19, 2025. 2 days later, 6 from Og Post. In response to a comment asking what happened when Oop told the case manager to take her house and assets out of the equation, how Mill is and what husband is doing. CM, case manager, said that was good to know. I made it clear that I would be willing to help him get set up elsewhere to a reasonable degree so there was a smooth transition, and she said they would factor that in. At last report, he and his mom have an appointment with her on Friday, and I hope they work it out. I was heavily supplementing Mill on groceries, especially since the kids have been there, her electricity bill, and one of her prescriptions that's uncovered. I was also running errands and would do things like mow the grass and some outside work on my off-shift week. Neither of them can spend a lot of time in direct sunlight. So told her that I'm cutting contact with her and she will have to make other arrangements. The prescription isn't life-sustaining, and I just picked up a month's supply for her before the argument so she has time to get her doc to switch her to something else or get a patient assistance case underway with the manufacturer. With winter incoming, there shouldn't be a lot to do outside and she can afford the rest, just not as comfortably. I sent food for the kids with so they're not immediately impacted and they have SNAP, which is rolling again. I asked my son to keep her response to himself, so I don't know how she took it and I really don't care. I really don't know what's going on with him at this point. I understand that scared people lash out, been there done that, and I don't know if he tossed divorce out there as a conscious manipulation tactic or an unconscious one. Either way, he knows that's a thing for me. I don't let people into my life quickly or easily, and I don't chase people, so the few people who are in because I trust them implicitly. He pressed the nuclear button and the missile has launched. He doesn't want to divorce now and is distraught, but I don't trust him now. He could be sincere, he could be manipulating because he's afraid of losing out. I'm not sure it matters, because even though I love him I think he broke the part of me that was in love with him. Not sure that's coming back. Update post. December 1, 2025, 18 days from Aug post. People have been asking me for an update and there were some forward developments before Thanksgiving. The bad news is that DHR, Department of Human Resources in Alabama, decided my son's medical situation rules him out as a primary guardian for the kids. He wouldn't be able to adequately care for them during a flare. Same for his mom, they have the same condition, his is worse than hers, but hers is more advanced. The good news is that the social worker talked the paternal relatives into agreeing to a DNA test. They didn't believe that the kids were really murderous Oz bio children and he and Sil were keeping the situation on the down low because he was married so they never established legal paternity. DNA was a match, so the grandparents on that side are taking the kids. What that means as far as visitation for my so and Mill is still being hashed out, but the whole thing has been de-escalated a lot thanks to a really competent case manager. As far as the divorce, I'm going ahead with it and filing this week. He's moved back in with his mom. They're salty about it, but that's to be expected. I still love him and wish him the best, but I'm done. His family is too much drama and I don't trust him the way that I did before this. Given that we were only married 2 years and the house is mine from before the marriage and protected, it should be a clean break. While I miss him being here, I'm already feeling less stressed with him gone and I didn't realize that had been creeping up on me for a while. I think I'm done with romantic relationships, at least for a good long while, so I'm going to focus on my career and some fun stuff I haven't had time to do since taking on a caretaker role. Thank you to those that offered support and advice. It sucks that any of this happened to begin with, but I think it's ending about as well as it could have at this point. I will be dropping contact with my ex's family so I doubt I'll have anything else to update. Some of OOP's comments. What condition ex and mom have? They have MS and myasthenia gravis. He has the childhood onset variant so his is a lot more debilitating, but his mom's has progressed more. It's managed as well as it can be, but I still wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Oop responds to a downvoted commenter. I wasn't tired of being his caregiver. I knew the score when we got married and accepted it. Things between us worked well, he did his best to be an equal partner and I did my best. We would still be married if he had accepted no as an answer instead of threatening divorce to get his way. Where the stress was coming from was mostly his family being a disaster. I took on a lot of things because it would remove stress from him and less stress meant he would have a longer and more able life. Now that I don't have to take into account a bunch of fragile, emotionally unstable in-laws, I have more time and feel less stressed myself. Had none of this happened, we may have gotten to the point where cutting some people off and setting stronger boundaries was necessary, but I loved my ex and he wasn't a burden by himself. Disabled people are capable of being good partners, it just takes good problem-solving skills and understanding of each other's needs and capabilities from everyone involved. The problem was that he evidently couldn't respect mine the same way I respected his. Sil. To be fair, I think that Sil was seriously mentally ill. Her behavior was similar to untreated bipolar disorder and postpartum stuff really didn't help that any. The kids should have been put up for adoption, between her and the father they never had a chance. At least with paternity established and the secrets out maybe they can have a relationship with their half-siblings and other relatives now and get appropriate attention and help. This sucks all around for the kids and some questions about the ex. Yeah, I want good things for the kids, too, it's just awful that they've had to go through it and life wasn't great for them even before this. I do get the sense that their bio father's family is more stable and financially able to get them what they need despite what their son did, and this way they have a chance at a relationship with their half-siblings while they're young. The thing that gets me about my ex is that he knows relationships are something I take really seriously. If you're one of my people, I had to go through a whole lot of effort and trust building to get there so you're something special to me. It boggles my mind that he could know that about me, throw out the D word, and then expect to walk it back. He has a few things to come collect when he finds storage for them, but after that I've told him that I need space and to contact the lawyer instead of me. Probably going to change my phone number anyway. His mom likes to leave angry VMs when she's got a bee in her bonnet. One more thought from Oop. From my perspective, it's understandable that he would want to help his nephews. Heck, I want his nephews to end up somewhere safe. I just know that's not with me. I don't think this had to be a make or break moment personally, and forcing it to one was really poor judgment. To illustrate, I'm an EMS pilot. I get the final say on whether it's safe to fly. If I choose to fly when it's not safe, the risk of death for myself, my crew, the transports, and anyone we crash on is high. If I decide not to fly, sometimes the patient dies. That's just the realistic calculus of the situation. If the most beloved person in my life was dying and needed an airlift but there's a lightning storm going on, I'm going to feel terrible and gutted about it, but we're still not going to fly because that would be insane. My ex made his hill to die on the equivalent of pressuring me to take a highly risky flight that could end very badly for everyone involved. He's not even the pilot because he's incapable of caring for the kids either way. He's a bystander with no impact on the outcome, asking other people to go on a suicide mission so he doesn't have to feel bad. The feelings are understandable, but to me, even being charitable and assuming he wasn't trying to manipulate me, letting emotions actually trump reality in a genuine crisis instead of working with the parameters of the real situation is foolish, and I can't trust someone like that.